clear that we will have as half of our time between now and 12 when we finish will be in question and answer, a debate with you, and please feel free to make a comment in any language. And I want to get away now from, I want to get away from issues of regulation, planning, government and the rest. I want to focus on new technology, and to help us to start that process, I'm going to invite up together Martin Marmy, Secretary General of the IRU, Spiros Palamas, Chairman of ICS, Hans Rath, the Secretary General of UTTP, Carlos Grau, Director of Government and Industry Affairs, IATA, and Johanna Ludwig, Executive Director of CER. Would you like to welcome them all, please? Thank you very much. Now, we have on this panel represented the trade associations, therefore, of rail, air, shipping, road haulage, and also for urban transport systems. And this is a very interesting combination. But before we actually embark on that sort of wider discussion, I wonder if I could go straight to you, Spiros. Spiros Palamas, who is head of the Trade Association for the shipping industry, someone who has been in the shipping industry for a long time. And I know that you have a particular comment you just want to make about something the EU minister said earlier.
Thank you. I like to highlight a difference that sometimes exists if authorities do not discuss at length some of the details. As we say, the devil is in the detail. The Commission mentioned the fact that perhaps one way of addressing the problem of the environmental improvements is through trading of carbon emissions. Of course, up to this point, nothing has been agreed yet through IMO and so on. But this is in contrast to what Mr. Widow said about the fact that shipping companies have already ordered, let's say, the next generation of ships, which are going to come in the water. 60% of them are going to come in the water the next 3 years. What this means is that shipping companies can do absolutely nothing in changing that, because this is already in the pipeline, and therefore they have to use the tools that are available and are being built by the shipyards. If you extend that beyond the 3 years, and for example, if we were to agree today on new designs, new types of designs for ships, new types of engines which are more efficient, it's going to take another, say, 5 years on top of that. So we're talking at least 10 years before we can have a new generation of ships which are more environmentally friendly.
So tell us what those new technologies might be, Spiros, to really change the shape and design of a new ship. What kind of things will we see?
I will come to that in a minute. I just want to finish this particular point, and that is that as far as trading carbons are concerned, I repeat, nothing has been agreed as yet, but it just doesn't work in the sense it is not an incentive because the shipping companies can do nothing about it. Okay. So it just doesn't work. If it is money we need to raise, then obviously the shipping industry is willing to contribute whatever and to do anything in their power to alleviate the problem of emissions. Now, as far as innovation is concerned, yes. You asked me the question. Well, the last few years, I mean, the last, I would say, 10 years, there has been a tremendous improvement in the efficiency of engines, up to something like 20–25% already, the diesel engines. But at the same time, there has been a sort of reverse action on the part of the designers, and that is that ships are less efficient, the hull form is less efficient through the water because the capacity has been maximized.
So this is because of containers?
No, it's not containers. Nope. I'm talking about cargo ships.
Okay.
the cargo carrying capacity of ships has been maximized.
Okay.
Now, in future, I think because of what is being discussed at IMO today, as we speak, the ship design index for new ships is going to incentivize the shipyards to produce more efficient ships.
Okay.
There are a number of ingredients in the design so that the new generation of ships is going to take care of that.
And by what percentage do you think we would see improvements in fuel efficiency, say for a new ship in 10 years' time, 15 years' time?
I think, I mean, I can guess because I don't know, but I think maybe to the order of 20%.
Okay, Joanna, thank you.
Sorry.
Well, and then I'm coming to you after.
I'm very surprised, about these I think everything depends, as in every market economy, on the price. If the price is going up, I think for transport, those who are building ships will reflect about this and will build different ships. So I think that is, and with all respect for all the ships which are already, I think, on the way, I think, to be delivered, I think, to the customer. The first question is not what ships, I think, are on the way to be delivered. The first question is what can we afford? And what kind of ships, I think, do we need for the transport, measured against the challenges we have. And the challenge is, the first one is sustainability. Is our transport sustainable? Yes or no? That is the first question. And the second one also was mentioned today, the demographic development. And how do we bring these, the transport system is a service system. And we have to ask ourselves, how can we service the objectives which are there, the general ones, And you see that in the car manufacturers industry. If the products they are delivering is not in line with what the market is asking for, nobody is buying the cars and nobody is buying the trucks.
Thanks.
And that might also happen, I think, through those who are building ships.
Johan, I just want to go to Martin at this point. You want to make a brief response, and then I want to ask you about new technology in engines.
No. Prior to that, I have something to say,
Okay.
Mr. Moderator, because this morning you were speaking about the crisis in energy price and so on and so on. Yesterday I was listening the same. It was the representative of DHL, the state-owned DHL, speaking about the dramatic increased price. They were adapting to $140 per barrel. You need to know that certainly the trucks are everywhere at the disposal of everybody and always, but I have the impression that we are operating in another planet, and I would like, before you are opening the forum, let the truck coming in this forum and on this planet, because you need to know that the truck are operating with fuel price since years for $400 per barrel. Therefore, I don't know why it is not known that we are the only mode paying since years up to $400 per barrel of fuel. Only the maritime, the aviation, all those people which have large subsidies, which have direct contact with their ministry, are benefiting from low price.
Okay, I can see a big reaction going on here.
No, but I'm sorry. Normally, to have a successful meeting, we should prepare the meeting. And you should know, as moderator, that the price of the fuel in the road transport sector was not $140, but $400 since several years.
Yes, Martin, I think it's a point well made. It's a really important one, that there is a major distortion in the transport market when it comes to fuel prices for road vehicles. I accept that, absolutely.
It's not distortion, it is discrimination.
Okay, all right. Carlos, can I ask you to respond to that? Because it's also relevant in the air industry. I always find it strange that there is very little tax on fuel in the air industry compared to what I put in my car.
There's a number of myths about that. First of all, international uplifts of fuel might not be taxed, that's right, but domestic ones are. And then if you look at the taxes you pay and the charges you pay on an airplane ticket, in places like the United States, you pay more than you would pay in tax for alcohol or tobacco. So this is a myth that air transport is not taxed. It's very much taxed because it's easy to tax air transport. But I want to respond to a point that Spiros made, which is very similar to what we experience in aviation about carbon footprint. Like shipping, our sources of pollution are highly mobile. A plane flies through the high seas, over the high seas and over international jurisdictions every day, several times. It's not like a power plant in Germany, for instance. So we need a different kind of solution for aviation and for shipping, which is global and applied to the sector. And that is not forthcoming yet. In the meantime, we're seeing the emergence of many regional solutions. Well, that's extremely complex for us to handle. It's expensive. And some people think that having a cap-and-trade system in a region is the silver bullet. Okay. No, it's a combination of things, and innovation is one of them.
Thank you. I want us to move on now. We could debate forever the different taxation environments and incentives and discriminations and whatever. And I want to just move on. I'm interested. We're looking at innovation next year. I'm interested in your own personal views. If you take your industry hat off just for a moment, I'm interested in your personal views, not just about aviation or shipping, but any view that you have about technologies which you are excited about, that you think will help our world and will radically change transport within the next 15 to 20 years. And actually, I'm going to start, if I may, with Hans, who has a perspective on light rail and urban infrastructure transport. Hans.
Well, the interesting thing is, Patrick, then when I was 25 years old, I wanted to have a car, I wanted to have a house, and I changed the oil of my car by unplugging it in a forest. Can you imagine? Now I would be accused to be an environmental criminal.
Indeed.
None of my children has a car. And it's not because their father is a Secretary General of UITP, because they haven't the slightest idea what I'm doing. It's about...
How old are they?
It's
How old are your children?
25 years old. Let's say 25 years old, 30 years old. The interesting thing is that, and that's innovation, that they have a different interest in things. It's not about the urban footprint. Living in Amsterdam and going to Barcelona to spend one night in the discotheque has nothing to do with urban footprint. Okay. You understand that? That means that the innovation is with the customers. There's a young generation changing their mind, rethinking things, rethinking mobility. Okay. It started before the energy crisis. It's going on. You see innovation here in front of this center. Mm-hmm. There's an interesting saying in Germany. When you want to drink a glass of milk, you don't need to own a cow. That's why car sharing is increasing all over the world. 5 of my staff are purely for financial reasons take part in car sharing systems. That means that they have their public transport card and they are a member of a club and they take a car where they want. They see on their mobile phone, on their mobile device, if there is a car available at the station next 200 meters, and if not, if there is a car left next 500 meters. They can see within some month whether the bike for bike sharing is available. That means that innovation is changing mobility patterns. Innovation means that when I'm sitting in a restaurant, I can see on my mobile device when I can take another cup of coffee before my tram is coming or not. This is not future, it's existing.
Absolutely.
And it's changing people's behavior. And that's why public transport companies all over the world are writing an increase of ridership. It started before the energy crisis, it's going on, and it will go on very strongly. And it's creating jobs. It's tremendously creating jobs. And it's electronics, it's smart making a supply chain, and that's the way it's going.
My wife and I have really enjoyed the Paris experience of bicycles that you can take from anywhere to anywhere. Who here has used those bicycles? Great fun, aren't they? If you can work out how the system works. I have to say the credit card payment system is awful if you are not from France. But the system, the idea is so beautiful. So I think it's very interesting what you're saying about cars. Johan, can I just ask you, if you put your future hat on, you look at brand new trains, either long distance or short haul trains, which are going to be coming online maybe 2025, 15 years away. In what ways do you think those trains will be different from the trains we have today? What innovation will we see in the actual mechanism or the way it's driven?
Well, these trains certainly will have, I think, much less energy consumption. That is we have in the European Railway Association set our own targets, reduction, I think, by 30% of specific energy consumption, I think, by 2020. in addition to the general objectives set by the European, I think, Union. So that is the most important thing, because I think the advantage we have, I think, in the railway system is that we are really sustainable, more, I think, than other, if you look on CO2 emissions and others than other modes. And we want to keep this advantage, and we are working very strongly on that. The point I think I would like to make is that innovation, I think we all have certain ideas on this, but from an economic point of view, innovation is driven by prices. You know, if a price, I think, gives a perspective, I think, just a minute.
Fuel price, yes.
Then I think the price, I think then people will go on innovation. If there's no perspective to sell something, I think nobody will invest, I think, into innovation. And that is, I think, the key problem, in my view, in the system is that if you look today on the financing, at least in Europe, of infrastructure and others, that structurally the system is underfinanced. You know, if you see the quality, not of the road, I think, network, of the railway network, particularly in Central Eastern Europe, you see that there's a structural underfinancing. And the question I'm asking myself, where do we get the money from in the future to finance, I think, not only the quality, but also the structural changes we need to make all this sustainable?
Martin? Microphone, thanks.
Sorry, we don't need infrastructure. We need to have smooth procedure. We make a test now. Several trucks are operating from China to Europe now, and 30% of the transport time is lost at border crossing. The problem is not a lack of infrastructure, but the railways are always asking for subsidies. You know, I have the impression I'm like a father of family, you know, with two sons.
Your own colleagues are asking in Germany the transport minister to invest into the motorway system every year, and they are doing that again and again.
Sorry.
You are asking for a lot of subsidies,
5 billion are invested in rail, and you transport 5% of the good, and 7 billion are invested in the road, and you are transporting 95% of the good.
We are not in a discussion
you have long enough to continue to sleep.
I'm going to act
Sorry.
Discussion round to tell
as referee here.
Tale stories.
No,
you know.
but
Johan?
allow me to explain the position of the railway in Europe.
Yep.
It is exactly the same as I was a father with two sons.
Martin?
One was born lame.
Is there any way to stop you, or is that not possible?
You know? And
it's a little bit like a truck, you know, on a motorway.
It is normal that you are helping the lame son, you know?
Let us always remember that this was a lively session.
Pretty lively.
Yes, pretty good. I know there's a huge debate. It's a really important debate about the use of public money, subsidies, finance, infrastructure investment. We've been hearing this, President Obama investing in high-speed rail links. It's a debate that every government is having. But I just want to lift us beyond that for the moment into innovation, pure and simple. And I take your point absolutely that energy prices help. If energy prices rise above what they are, it will accelerate innovation. On that issue, Carlos, talk us through, from your point of view, where innovation could go in the aviation industry.
Let me say short term, medium term, very long term. In terms of efficiency of flying, there's a number of things you can do in the very short term. The planes are equipped, but it has to do with air traffic control, the way the airspace is built, the way we land and take off. It's about procedures, basically. It's about political will to change things that could be changed relatively easily.
What would the cost be of changing those kinds of systems?
If we arrived at a single European sky, for instance, in terms of carbon, there would be a 12% drop.
12% drop in energy. And what would the cost be of implementing that solution?
I've seen figures that scare me a little bit. But they're in the billions.
Billions?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think the efficiencies are there, so it's an investment worth making. We're absolutely behind that.
But there are other efficiencies too. I mean, I was horrified to discover that if you... who here has flown on a plane where you have straight wings without a wingtip? Put your hands up if you've flown on a plane that has wings like that without a bit up. I was horrified. Did you know that on that flight we have thrown away between 5 and 7% of all the aviation fuel? What is the cost of putting that on a plane? It's not too great.
It's not too great, and we're doing it.
I mean, it's happening still quite slowly for me. I'm still flying half of my flights on very wasteful wings, I guess.
No, there's more and more. I mean, the incentive is there for fleets to be renewed and to. There's no stronger incentive than oil prices last year for the airline industry to to become extremely fuel efficient. We have the highest possible incentive.
If Stelios was here, he would say it's nothing to do, well, he would say, yes, technology, get your best planes, but he'd also say it's something to do with efficiency of the sector itself in terms of packing bodies onto planes. Do you agree?
To some extent, yes. I mean, if you look at the way we are regulated, the business side of aviation, it goes back to the 1940s. Airlines are still national entities. We cannot access international equity markets. It's very difficult to consolidate across borders. It's very difficult to fly where it makes sense to fly from a commercial point of view, because it's all regulated by treaties, by bilateral treaties that go back to the 1940s. And it's about time that we change that. I think this crisis presents a fantastic opportunity to rethink that framework. And that would drive a lot of efficiency.
Hans, any other innovation issues you'd like to encourage us with?
Well, one of the simple things for innovations is just equipping every bus and tram stop with an electronic device so that the passenger knows when his next bus is coming. It's incredible. We have seen the results of it. It's just not longer standing somewhere and not knowing what's happening. And it's possible. It's applied more and more. There is one hair in the soup, if I might call it like that. Since some 10 years, the sector is changing, and public transport is more and more done on contracts, following tenders from public authorities. And I think that the public sector still has to gain experience on how to get a better discussion together with operators.
I'm interested to see exactly this technology outside this building. If you queue for a bus, it tells you how many seconds you have to wait. What I want to know is this. Those systems cost money to put in. The only rationale for doing it is that it encourages people to stay at the bus stop a bit longer and to take the bus. Do you have evidence that it actually increases the use of buses?
Yes, I have. I don't have the figures here, but I have evidence, and you can feel it yourself.
Joan?
I can see, you can see if you travel a lot, and I think most of us are doing that, you see this is spreading more and more. And I can only confirm, I think, what Hans has said, you know. If you are standing, you know, the bus is coming in 5 minutes, you're ready to wait. If you are standing there, you have no idea when the next bus is coming, then you're looking for something else, you know. So this is really, makes, I think, a difference. And you see that this is really spreading more and more, even in Brussels, finally, you know. If you take the bus in Brussels, you know, from Gare Centrale, for example, I think, to our office or to the European Parliament Commission, they have now these systems, and it makes really difference.
That's why they have an increase of passengers of more than 10% a year.
Yeah. Okay, fascinating. Martin, do you want to say innovation? And then we're going to go to the floor.
Innovation is important not only for improving the quality of the service to the customer, but to be sustainable. And in our organization, innovation is a key pillar because the fuel price is extremely high, because we have clients which are demanding high quality service since ever, and we are the only mode at the disposal of everybody, everywhere, at any time.
I know that you are passionate about ceramic engines and their impact. Tell us about that.
Alors, innovation for us is based on silicon. The future of the road transport is silicon. For the ships, to increase management of the engine and the logistics, it is a silicone to have the higher temperature in the engine to reduce the consumption, because we pay so high price. For the railways, where they are subsidized, they have no incentive at all to make any improvement in the electricity consumption.
I'm going to have to turn the mic.
I'm sorry to say that. The price is a leading factor.
Okay.
And for us, we need to use silicone to have ceramic in the piston, and we need also to have the silicone for the ceramic to have the gearboxes with high temperature. In other words, with that, we can reduce dramatically the fuel consumption, and we can be much more efficient in our operation.
I need to go to the floor now, but just before I'm going to do that, I just want to invite back the 4 panelists we had this morning, because I want to give you, the audience, the maximum opportunity now to use this time to address questions to Johan, Carlos, Spiros, etc. So if the 4 original panelists would like to come back up onto the stage, please. Thank you very much. And I'd like you to be ready straight away with your questions and comments. And I wondered if anyone would like to catch my attention straight away. There are microphones here, and I could do with one too. I'd like a microphone. Okay. Yes. Okay, I'm going to come straight to Minister of State for Germany. Quick comment. Microphone. Can someone give me a microphone, please? A microphone I need. Oh, so sorry. So sorry. That's fine. Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you very much. And then I'll come. Someone else?
I have a question because concerning innovation, we speak mostly about carbon footprint. We speak about energy. But I think we have also to speak about noise and other environmental impacts, because if we want, as a transit country like Germany is a transit country, want acceptance for mobility and increasing transport sector, we need to handle the noise problem. And I would like to know what the people on the board on the panel think about the noise reduction capabilities in their transport means.
Thank you. Carlos, can you go first on that from the aviation point of view? On noise, we're talking about noise in transport. What can you do within your sector, and what are you doing? And then Martin.
Noise, the noise footprint of aviation has improved significantly over the last 3 decades. It's reduced the footprint around an airport tremendously in tens of percentage points. There is, if you look at the 380 today, when it lands, the noise you hear is more from the aerodynamics than from the engines.
So we've got the same problem now as with the car, which is it's something that's really difficult to fix, is what you're saying.
There are trade-offs. I mean, what the experts are telling us, both engineers and people in air traffic control, is that there are trade-offs between CO2 and noise.
We've got the same problem with tyre technology. We heard from Michelin this morning that they're right up against it in terms of noise in tyres. It's very difficult to deal with. Okay, Martin, freight has had, Martin Marmy, freight trucks is a big issue, especially as the loads are getting heavier. Any comment on noise reduction?
No. The noise can be matched in our profession by strict norm, and the norm has been reinforced dramatically in the last few years. The problem of the noise and the problem of the trucking industry is a problem of perception. The biggest vehicle with the same engine as used on motorway are used in the city center without any complaint by the population. The longest bus in the city with the 3, which correspond to the modular concept that our organization is promoting on the motorway, which is rejected by the Commission up to now under the pressure of the railways. This biggest combination, it is true. It is a lobby of the railway which has been blocking this file since several years.
Thank you very much.
We need to speak. We need to speak openly.
There's another question down here.
I didn't know that we are so efficient. You know?
And the biggest vehicle are used in city center without any complaint, where the population is living.
Martin,
they are forbidding this big vehicle on the motorway, which could diminish by 20% the footprint in CO2.
Martin, we have another question here. Thank you.
It is the Commission mainly which is blocking this factor.
Sorry, this is not a question, just a response to the gentleman who's just spoken, who said that the railway industry has no incentive to improve its environmental performance. With respect, that's nonsense. And the incentive, of course, is competition. The operators of railway vehicles all want lower carbon, and they want lower lifetime operating costs. I represent a Japanese company, Hitachi, which is negotiating a contract for exactly that on the British rail system at the moment. And we have demonstrated a train in the UK which, with hybrid traction systems, can already, and aluminium bodies, smaller diesel engines, can already realize 20% fuel efficiency. So that is, I'm afraid, a refutation of your comment. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to take a couple more comments before we go back to the panel. Yes.
Thank you, Moderator. My name is Marco Sorgetti, and I'm the director of ClayCut. 2 comments. First of all, on the issue of innovation. It's true that there is a price component in innovation, but there is also a component that has to do with fostering innovation. This has been measured. There is a science that is studying it. I think that we are often hoping too much from the price signals and not fostering enough the other side. I'll give you an example to make you laugh a little. When you are a kid and you want to make a paper plane, you would never dream of making the paper plane without vertical flaps because it just doesn't fly. Then you become older, you become an engineer, and you forget that you have done it when you were a kid. on innovation in other fields of transport, I'd be pleased to give you more examples, but if you want to go to our website, it's full of them on the future of transport comments.
Thank you very much. We have another comment from India here, from one of the trade associations in India. I'm so glad that you're here this week.
My name is K.L. Thapa. The technology cycles, as you know, have been shrinking throughout the world. Ever since the man emerged on this earth, it is the innovation which has changed the way which we move, the people as well as the goods. We started with the wheel, we went with the sails, we finally have landed up with the roads or with the rails moving. I imagine the movement will be towards magnetic levitation. It will, at the present moment, it is an expensive proposition, but I'm surely the world will move towards that. Second, railways will continue to play a larger role in the mobility of the people. You're talking in the European context. The world lives in different levels of economic development. We talked of the demography this morning, and there are such large countries where the railways' role will be important. But an interesting point was made. The hardware of transport has a longevity cycle. You can't wish it away. With the result that what we are discussing now will start fructifying after several years to come. In the meantime, we have to live. And one more factor, it is good to reduce, we should move toward that cycle, but the intensity of the travel will keep on increasing. Therefore, this footprint, whatever we are talking of, the magnitude of that probably will not decline in that immediately. And the last one, and that is from the perspective of the developing countries. It's a question of access to technology. And when we are talking of sustainability of the world, and for once only in history, this world is one, in the sense that if I pollute in India or in China or Argentina, the effects are also felt throughout the world, and the same vice versa. The issue is how to access that technology, which is life-saving, and how to permeate it across into the developing countries so that you and I can live at least. The larger issue will be raised in the context of intellectual property rights and the so and so forth and all that. And I think I leave it with this thought. How do we manage the access to the technology?
Thank you very much. Hands going up all over the place. I want to take 2 or 3 brief comments. Firstly, I would like to come here to Hitachi. Oh, sorry. Nissan, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Nissan from Japan, delighted you're here. From your perspective, technology, innovation in transport, what does it mean?
In the automotive, someone said like electric car will be introduced, and then that should be one solution for our automotive industry. But in the same time, we have to look at classification of the vehicles. Some of the vehicles could be electric, but others are like diesel, hybrid, or other power source. And for example, if you drive more than several hundred miles, you have to drive the most efficient vehicle, which is not the electric vehicle. And if you drive in the city, electric vehicle might be a good solution. So some kind of a differentiation or classification of the vehicle is really important.
Okay, in your view, how long will it be before we can sell a family one car, which is electric, to do both, long and short distance?
I think that takes more than 20, 30 years.
Okay.
And also the cost and the price effectiveness is
very
quite
expensive.
different.
Thank you. We've got a question at the back there. Comment?
Good morning. My name is Peter Hendy, and I'm the chair of the UK Commission for Integrated Transport and also the Commissioner of Transport for London. You're talking about innovation. The majority of the world's population now live in cities. especially in the developed world. The cities are the engines of our national economies, and as Hans said, we need to ensure sustainable solutions for city mobility and congestion to make sure cities survive and prosper. What I wanted to suggest was that it isn't only technical innovation that's needed. There are a huge number of short-distance journeys in cities which can be made by public transport, by cycling and walking, and learning how to affect people's behaviour as a method of innovating modal shift will be as important as any technical innovation in making our cities livable in the 21st century. We're attempting to do that in London and the UK, and I think it's something which is just as important as technical innovation.
Thank you very much. I just want to go to an Australian perspective here. Thank you for the UK, yes?
G'day, mate. Most of the discussion so far has been about technical innovation, and one of the messages that I've taken out of the 3 days of this conference is that it's fundamental that we have innovation in governance arrangements, regulation and in planning systems as well if we're actually going to achieve the sorts of transformational changes that are going to be required in the next 30 years to meet our targets in greenhouse and other areas.
So what you're saying is it requires courageous, joined-up thinking right now, and we've got to forget about blips and highs and lows in economies and just get on with it.
Yeah,
yes.
My name is Marius Melediu. I'm the transport specialist of the International Labour Organization. I would like to raise the issue of imbalance in innovation in different parts of the transport sector, and particularly when it comes to safety and health rather than innovation for saving money. And I would like to give as an example that presently the technology in air traffic management is 20 years behind the technology in the cockpit.
Technology in the
air traffic management,
yes.
Air traffic control.
It's 20 years behind.
Behind the technology in the cockpit of the airplane.
In the cockpit, yes.
And investments in this respect have been stopped since the previous two crises, the crisis after the Iraq War in the 90s and the crisis of 9/11, and it seems that there is no emphasis in that safety and health issue. Thank
Carlos.
You I fully agree. Is this on?
Yes.
It is true. There's equipment in the cockpits today which would allow us to fly the planes much more efficiently than we do, and it's because it doesn't link up with the technology on the ground. This could change with political will. Things are happening in the European Union with a single sky. We have a next generation of air traffic control coming in the States, but it's taken decades for this to change. Regarding the cost, I want to remind everyone that in aviation, you passengers pay for infrastructure. It's part of the price of the ticket. This means of transport pays fully, sometimes more than fully. It's a net contributor
But some of these innovations could pay for themselves in terms of energy savings, could they?
I don't know whether you could say that, but certainly there is a case to be made.
Depending on the price of fuel. Spiros, I know you wanted to say something, is that right?
Yes. I think what is paramount is that there is a dialogue, an open and free dialogue between industry and regulators and politicians. The shipping industry has a vision of zero emissions. That is, of course, is a very fantastic goal, but when one thinks how it can be achieved, then you come into the word innovation.
And how would it be achieved? Zero emissions in shipping?
Through innovation, for example, new types of engines, new types of fuel, and we have to get away from fossil fuels, or some other way to contain.
So a hydrogen ship?
Maybe, or nuclear.
Well, nuclear or even second-generation biofuels, we have to think about all these different variants. But what I wanted to say is, first of all, you see why it's so great fun to be Director General on Transport, with all the debate, which I normally have also in my office here. There are lots of controversies. I think Martin Marni will applaud me when I say that most goods are transported on the road, and even if we get a little bit more shifted on the rail, it'll still be overwhelmingly on the roads. You will perhaps be less happy when I say This is why we have to make the road greener, greener, greener all the time, and also move towards the internalization of external costs.
Okay.
The internalization of external costs also means that we have to attack noise in terms of railways and find some ways of making sure that we also have some system which makes it pay for the railways, that they actually reduce noise, and so on and so on. I can go on and on, but...
Ron, thank you. Ron? Sorry. Sorry, not Ron. Jamal. Sorry.
I just want to come back quickly on our colleague from IATA. I hear you. However, you emit 4% of CO2, equivalent to what Africa emits per year. At 4% that you emit right now are equivalent at 20,000 feet to 20% and takes longer to be absorbed. So there is an issue. In terms of manufacturing, we haven't seen the major breakthrough that we have seen in other industry. Let's talk about it a bit here. The industry is not investing in huge R&D to leapfrog and cut and getting us the CO2 much quicker.
Okay, I'm going to have to go back into the audience. Yes, please.
Could I reply to that?
Just a moment, thank you.
I'll get up. Good morning. Regina Asariotis, United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. I've joined the debate late, so I would just like to make a comment on the question of innovation. At the risk of repeating a point made earlier in this, over the course of the last 3 days, climate change, I think, has to be understood not much more, not just in terms of transport's contribution to it, emissions control, which is an extremely important aspect, but the study of impacts and adaptation. It's quite obvious in the maritime field that ports are going to be very much affected. Ports are the outlet of all states to international trade, including landlocked states. I'm sure the same is applicable to airports and to all, to the entire supply infrastructure. And at this stage, while we know that climate change is happening, there's very, very little done in terms of the study of vulnerability of individual regions, individual parts of the supply chain, and planning for adaptation. And this is long overdue. Certainly a lot of money is required, and a lot more money into research and development and dissemination of knowledge and existing technology. So I think this is something to throw into the debate.
Thank you very much. Now, we're right up against time because we have to be into a press conference on the dot of 12 o'clock. And I also want to give the closing remarks to Jack. So I'm going to have to ask you to hang on to any further comments or questions you have. Now, what I'd like to do is, if I dare, if you think this is a risk that can be taken, is in less than 6 minutes to see if we can get a brief comment, very brief comment from each of our panelists. And I'm going to start from the left. So it'd be just a few seconds, just one parting comment. One final thought that you'd like to leave this conference with as they spin out from here into the rest of their busy lives.
Okay, thank you. There's a variety of, we've talked about innovation a lot, and I think it's important that away from the conference goes the understanding that there's a tremendous amount of opportunity. Government engagement certainly is part of that. Getting at improvement that doesn't necessarily involve a great deal of investment, doesn't involve a great deal of time. But for that will require some regulatory and some legislation to be enacted to be helpful in doing that. Labor reform, efficiencies in ports, which was just mentioned, gigantic improvement in efficiency of the supply chain and flow that doesn't require decades and trillions of dollars of investment. Government plays a role in that, working with industry. And I think away from here goes that, aside from the multi-decade type problems that we've talked about in investment.
Thank you. Jamal, thank you.
I'll come back to the counsel offered to the Sicilian prince in Lampedusa novel. If you want things to stay as they are, things will have to change.
Thank you. Scott.
Yes, I think the point was validly made that, you know, we have a massive, massive infrastructure investment coming if we're going to come close to tackling the whole issue of the carbon footprint. And I think that what is very dangerous at this point is that we lack a clear roadmap in terms of all aspects of the logistics industry, but that's tied to the regulatory environment globally, and it's tied to the labor environment.
Matthias, that's a challenge for you, I guess, in the European Union.
Let me just conclude by saying I think we've seen the need for joined-up thinking in terms of transport. My biggest fear is that transport policy in the future will be done by energy ministers, by environment ministers, by finance ministers, if we don't get our act together as transport people to think in the future.
Okay, so you're arguing for industry, partnership, and very close dialogue. Yes, thank you, Martin.
Road transport is already the greener transport mode, so we ask a new directive from the Commission to forbid the transport of goods by plane, because as said yesterday, 2 jumbo used regularly are polluting like 30,000 trucks. And the DHL plane are using exactly the same quantity of fuel, and I'm sure if DHL, although they are state-owned, if their trucks are polluting exactly the same way as the trucks which are owned by the private sector.
Okay,
sorry,
thank you.
Sorry, I have to rebut because it became personal. DHL is not state-owned, and you need to get your facts correct. You can go to the share register and confirm that fact, sir. And the second is that the last time I looked, there is not a road from China to the United States, so you also need to be a little bit sensible in your comments.
May I add to that, to respond to a point made earlier, that our emissions are 2%, not 4%. Those are United Nations figures.
Spiros.
At the risk of needling my neighbor, I think the shipping industry is the most environmentally form of transport. But in all sincerity, I would like to reiterate that what I think is paramount is that there has to be an honest and open dialogue between authorities, governments, and industry. There is no other way, because what governments think might work will not necessarily work. And therefore, they need to have this on a continuous basis. They need to talk to industry. They need to talk in detail about some of the things that they're thinking. In other words, before they positions become entrenched. They have to come to industry with an open mind and discuss whatever they want to do.
Okay, thank you very much. Hans?
Every change from the car to public transport improves the conditions, the environmental conditions. Every way in which public transport can drive more smoother, like in Istanbul, I congratulate the Minister of Turkey. They created recently new bus lanes, which is a tremendously good way to improve the energy efficiency. It's not as costly, and I've seen that it's a success because it's good for the passengers as well. It's a ministers' conference. I've seen over the last decades that a lot of public transport powers has been decentralized, and I understand that. But I would call on the ministers to keep it on their agendas as well. It happened in Canada with a lot of success. It happened in Australia on a federal level with a lot of success. And I beg you, keep it on your agenda. It's worse.
Thank you very much. Carlos?
Aviation is an industry that operates at razor-thin margins. It has tremendous drivers for efficiency. We have formulated visions for medium and long-term efficiency goals in the environment and in the structure of the industry. But we cannot implement it alone. We need a partnership with governments, and it takes concerted political will to do so.
On a global basis,
On a global basis.
Okay, and yeah.
Well, I have learned that road transport is perfect, and on the railways, we still have to work on that. And but to be more serious, I think what we are underestimating, I think we are running out of time if you take the issue of sustainability. We have a conference in Copenhagen at the end of this year. Transport is the only sector where CO2 emissions continue, I think, increasing, if I take away for the moment the economic, I think, downturn. The only sector. All the others are much more progressed on that. We have no concept, it was said earlier, no roadmap for the moment, how we deal and we cope with this problem. I'm surprised that the issue for the next ITF forum next summer is innovation. I think it would be better to discuss where can the transport sector be, I think, in 5 or 10 years? And what do we have to do to achieve, I think, these objectives? And that is, I think, we are running out of time to a certain extent at least. And I think this is much more serious. And I agree with Matthias Rüte. I think we have to be very careful that in the transport sector we are not losing, I think, that we are the master of the game. Others will take over if we don't do our homework. And there's a lot to do, and there's a risk that we are losing the initiative, I think, to other ministers and other competences if we don't, I think, speed up, I think, the process. So I would recommend to reflect a little bit what we are discussing, I think, in a year from now.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, it's been a fascinating discussion, and for me, take-home messages as we summarize the whole conference together have been that the economic crisis, yes, it's going to hit companies hard, big consolidations, competitors will disappear, but as it does, life will get easier in the upturn for those that remain. In the meantime, we will see at every level aggressive attempts propelled by market, by moral questions about the environment, by sheer economics forced on us by oil prices to make huge efficiencies in just about every sector, in every conceivable way, whether it's rail ticketing, whether it's electronic bills of lading, which allows the same container to go through from Leipzig to Shanghai without 72 stamps on it, whether it's infrastructure issues in terms of road transport, the traffic corridors we've talked about that make life easier for the trucks and the trains to get in and out of big cities to ports and so on. So for myself, I have to confess, I am an optimist. I happen to think that the world's greatest challenges at the moment can largely be fixed by a combination of imagination, innovation, and regulation. And those three things happening together with the investment which will surely come when we see good business models. I think that this is a good time for the transport industry, and I'm sure that we will look back on 2009 as a pivotal time from being consumed with crisis to a realization that with all this economic stimulus, there are tremendous opportunities, perhaps the greatest opportunities that the transport industry has seen in a generation. And with that, I'd like to thank our panel very much indeed. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I, at this point, would also like to ask Jack to come and to formally close the conference and to give his respective thanks. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we come to the end of 4 fascinating days. Usually when things end, we come to some nice agreement and everybody leaves with a certain sense of warmth that everything is settled and agreed. You can see that we didn't quite achieve that this time and that we have much to do. I'll be brief. I don't want to enter into the substantive discussion because I think I would take too much of your time. But I could perhaps say a couple of words about where some of the outputs of this event are and how you can use them and follow them up. First thing is that outside the door and outside the rooms of the other events during the day, but they're still around, are the various bits of paper and outputs that we have put together during the event. The key ministerial messages, the various conclusions of the workshops. So they're all there as an output for you, put together quickly, so maybe they will be revised a little bit, but nevertheless, there's a substantive set of conclusions and outputs for you to take home with you. We also will prepare from the Secretariat side a more detailed paper based on a lot of the discussions we have heard and issue that as quickly as we can. I should also refer you to the website where the background papers, and there were many of them, are fascinating data analysis on different modes, different aspects of the problem, and there's a rich wealth of material there that you can use as well. So those outputs, I think, are part of what we have contributed from this event. So please feel free to use all those. Next year, we will move on to discuss innovation, and of course, we are interested to try and keep the momentum in this forum moving and to make improvements. So you all have evaluation forms in your bags, and please feel free to make your suggestions, your comments on things that maybe would be done differently or better, and we would appreciate all those comments. We know perfectly well some of the things we should do better. We do notice that our panels are a bit too masculine, and maybe that's something that we need to change in the future. Maybe that's an important innovation that can help our system. So next year we will try very hard to improve at least that aspect of it. I would just then like to finish by a few thank yous. First of all, Minister Yıldırım, thank you very much for your country's support, for your personal support. I know today you didn't feel well and that you weren't really up to coming here, but you still did it, so thank you very much for that. We very much appreciate your being here. And to Canada, we look forward very much, Minister, to working with you next year. And we thank you also for stepping in and being ready to step in. That's very flexible, and we really much appreciate that. Germany, too, is a very close partner now that we are here in Leipzig, and we would thank the German government and all the staff of your ministry for their constant support and guidance and help in the preparation of this event. I'd like also to thank all our other member governments who have been active in preparing this event and in getting everything ready. Our two countries that led the task force to prepare it, Australia and UK, are here in the room as well, and thanks to you and your staff for all of that. All our partners too deserve thanks, and we have now grown an increasing number of partners. There are people who are helping us a little bit with sponsorship, and we have put together an advisory board of private sector people. We'd like to thank them very much. All our partners in the international domain, other international organizations whom we have worked together with to prepare some of the other events. A sincere thanks to you all. We're very grateful for the cooperation, and I think we really do actually work together quite well. So that's all the thank yous, apart from just, if you will permit me, a thank you to my own staff who have been incredibly dedicated, and they have really given everything. And just a last personal wish to Alain Rathary, who has done almost all the practical arrangements for this conference, and Alain is retiring, and so we will miss him greatly, but Alain, good luck to you, huh? And finally, just all of you for staying till the very end. Thank you very much for your interest, your continuing animation, and we very much appreciated it. So thank you all very much. There's a press conference and you're all welcome to attend if you want to. But thank you all very much. Safe trip home, and we'll see you all next year. Thank you.